My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Now podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.
I don't like the sound of it, like, as I'm doing it
sure.
in my head. When I, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like, I would rather just, I can hear you. I don't need them in.
It's like a monitor or something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's exactly like a monitor, and it's like, I don't want that in my head
I've never been able to appreciate monitors. Like, I'm sure I just haven't been in a venue where I found them useful.
Oh,
been on them a few
especially
times.
for comedy. I've never had a purpose. Like, I get musicians
Probably,
and stuff.
yeah.
It probably helps. I mean, well, that's why a lot of musicians use that for, I suppose, so they can hear their music too, so they can
feel if it's good or whatever.
I don't know.
I saw a picture of Dunham, who's a ventriloquist, but it's essentially comedy in the sense of one guy on stage, no music, but he has 4 monitors around him when he's on stage. Now he's in front of big arenas.
Yeah, that's true.
Just still seems
and
excessive.
I wonder if maybe for his purpose is because he also does voices.
Perhaps.
Well, I mean, he does the ventriloquism, but
Right.
he still does voices.
Yeah, so
as
there's
he
multiple
does them.
voices coming through.
So maybe it helps him so he can kind of hear how they sound or
Right.
something. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not up to speed on the purpose of monitors. I just know, like, when I'm up on stage, I'm like, I don't need this.
off?
Yeah, does this need to be on? It's loud. I want to be able to hear my audience. I want to. Well, I don't want to hear myself. I want to hear them. And
Okay, I can hear myself. You poor people. Wow.
I should just leave now. Call it a day.
Right.
Call it a day. Have you did any shows this week?
I hosted, I emceed at Courtyards of Andover.
Oh, nice.
Which I don't know if you've done, is a super fun room.
I've not done that room yet.
I featured there in December, and then I was Michael Thorne books that, and I was talking to him about some other stuff, and he's like, "Hey, who are the people? I'm looking for MCs for Andover," and I was like, "I'd love to go back. It was a lot of fun."
Yeah.
And he says, "How about the 31st with Wendy Mayberry and Karen Pickering?" And
Yeah.
I'm like, absolutely. So I went back and we did that Friday night, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'm actually doing their show on Wednesday.
Oh,
Day
Day
drinking with Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah. That should be a fun time.
Right.
I was listening to Andy's podcast the other day, actually. Listening to your episode.
Oh,
in
right
fact.
on.
Yeah, that was crazy shit.
Yeah, it was nuts, right?
Man, crazy.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a lot of crazy stories on that podcast.
There's
like,
a ton, yeah.
Been listening to it off. It's a really good podcast in
Yeah.
the sense that people who experience those things could definitely like benefit from hearing other people's take on things or whatever, but it's also super heavy that I have to like listen to it in chunks. I'm like,
Right.
all right, I can listen to an episode today.
Yeah.
Now the rest of the day I have to listen to positive comedy stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, like it's just it's not something you binge.
No,
If
you
have
don't
a 6-hour
binge it.
drive,
No,
you don't
no.
listen to all those, but I'll tell you what, I had mixed emotions about doing it because it's very personal, and Andy's a good friend, so it wasn't hard telling him, but knowing that anybody now could hear this story was
absolutely
was a little intimidating. But Andy's so easy to talk to, and if you know, we recorded it in my parking garage at my apartment because my wife was upstairs sick, and Andy had came up there, and then I was leaving to meet Andy, and she was like, "Please don't let anybody in here." And I'm like, "You got it,
Right.
sweetheart." So we recorded in the garage in his car. So
Oh, that's funny. In his garage, in his car, even.
yeah, so it was kind of
Yeah,
dope.
well, the audio turned out pretty good on
Yeah,
it.
it did.
He's
Real quiet.
that's something I learned from listening to his podcast, that he went to school for psychology, and I'm like, well, that makes sense because he's really good with how he like talks with people on his podcast. You know, as far as like coming at it from kind of more of like somebody that's listening and not a problem solver or trying to be the show, but more of a keep it moving along, but let the person talk.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a good read of character.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've known Andy almost the entire time. I met him at my third mic.
Yeah.
So I've
he
known
said
him
he's known you for a while.
a long time. So
he's good people.
Really good people.
He's gonna be, when he listens to this episode, he'll be all giddy that we're talking about him.
Or crying. You never know.
Yeah, it could be either way, but we better stop. Enough about that guy.
To
I did
heck
his
with that
podcast too, but mine wasn't nearly as deep, I guess, or heavy, because it was more about physical pain. So it wasn't like, you know,
Yeah.
I feel like emotional pain can be a lot worse than
Probably
physical pain.
Emotional pain. You don't know if there's an end in sight.
Yeah,
You know, a lot of times with physical pain, you just got to get better.
True story. How'd the show go then Friday?
It went good. So it's a banquet hall that sells the tickets. And so some nights there's 180 people, some nights there's 300 people, some nights there's 40 people. It just depends on how many people buy the tickets. So we probably had 60 people, I guess. And they were into it. They were totally into it. It's not an inexpensive show to attend. It costs, but it includes dinner. So they're there for comedy and they're ready to laugh.
Which that's always nice. It's always nice when people are there for the comedy part of it.
Right.
Them dinner and comedy shows are a good combo.
Absolutely.
I have a dinner comedy show that I run quarterly, and it's always a good time.
Yeah, this room is a lot of fun, and it's such a great option for these. This is the booker part of me coming out. It's such a great option for these wedding halls that just are slammed all summer, but then and especially the corporate Christmas parties.
Yep.
And then after that, they sort of die out for a while. It's like, this is such a great option because you have the kitchen, you have the equipment, the space, just to get people in and then show them when they start looking for those venues.
Oh, absolutely.
Now yours rings, and Courtyard's a beautiful venue.
Yeah. I think I was actually supposed to do that before I even moved up here.
Okay.
I think I was booked to feature for Spencer Dobson. And I think it ended up falling through because it was double booked or something. There was a mix up in some of the booking or something.
Yeah, it's a weekly show from October to
so.
May or something. So there's a lot going on, and Michael has a lot, but he does a good job. And
I don't think I've met him. It doesn't ring a bell.
Good guy, been around a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. We'll have to meet him. Well, let's talk about bombing. That's what this podcast is all about.
Nice.
I'll get right to it. Right to it. Yeah, you said the show on Friday was good, but let's talk about a show that was not good.
Oh, there's certainly been several. I was thinking about it on the way over when the last time I bombed was, and I actually terribly bombed was in November. I featured for Kristen Anderson. I don't know if you know that name. She's a corporate comic from the Twin Cities, and she had a gig at a theater in Rochester, and it was like an independent movie theater. And she needed a feature. I had featured for her one time here in town. She's like, "You want to do it?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And we get there, and the mic is an amp.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and I do... The further out of town I tend to do better. And they were a very in-town crowd, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I didn't do bad. I just wasn't their cup of tea. And I just remember, in the scheme of road comedy, Rochester's not that far. It was an hour and a half. We got a room out of the deal, like whatever. And I just remember thinking, God, that was really bad. And it just, I don't know, when you bomb, you lose all faith in...
Oh, absolutely.
Humanity.
How did the headliner do on the show? Did she do good?
She did okay. She's been doing comedy 20 years, so she's able to rebound a little bit better than somebody who's been doing it for 4.
Oh, absolutely.
4
but
or 5.
I always wonder because when comics, because there's different kinds of comics. You've got your club comics and you've got corporate comics and cruise ship comics or whatever. And, and they can all kind of be the same comic. But sometimes when somebody just does corporate events and then they go do like a public event, it's not as easy because it's like, for whatever reason, like it's a different psychology from the audience perspective. Like somebody that's coming to a public show, is there because they're there to, hopefully they're there for a comedy show. That's why they went. Whereas at a corporate event, they're there for whatever it is, whether it's, a seminar or entertainment at, workshop or holiday party, whatever it is. So they're not necessarily there for the entertainment.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So like corporate comics have to work a little bit different than a club comic per se. So I always wonder about that.
I have to, I guess, I have my wife was blowing me up here, and I just had to make sure.
I'm like, what's going on?
No, and
there?
I thought she was okay.
To me and then you stopped me, or you stopped. And
I'm like, what? I just want to make sure she's okay, and I'm just gonna say recording.
The best podcast
recording is so she knows I'm doing it, but I thought she was in trouble or something because she kind of blew my stuff up, but. She was sending me. She likes to send me stuff as reminders, so that's what she was doing. So
keeping you in line.
Please stop. Please stop. So.
Please stop being you. All right?
But no, she handled it okay. She was able to rebound, and she didn't crush by any stretch. But I just remember, like, when you're in a hotel and you're after a bad set, you're just like, oh, it was just, I don't know, it just knocks life. And I get excited for my sets probably too much, and so a bomb really just hits home. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And so, but that was the last time that I feel like I've really, really bombed. It certainly wasn't the first.
What? Why do you think you bombed? Like, what was it? Like,
I don't know what they were expecting, but I don't think it was a 400-pound white dude. I'll just leave it at that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You think it's more of they were kind of a higher class crowd, or?
Yeah, probably, and a little bit more, a little bit more urban, a little bit. They were probably expecting a little bit more intelligent humor, maybe, than what I had.
A little bit more uppity.
Upscale comedy, and I just don't think that there was a cup, that was their cup of tea, and it was fine. And I mean, people were like, "Oh, you did okay," and I was like, "Thank you,"
Yeah.
But they weren't like I did Monticello, Minnesota, at an American Legion 3 weeks ago, and did very well. And I know I did well. Everybody felt like I did well. That felt more right than this. It's just
it's all about the venue. Now, so that was the last time you felt like you bombed. But is that the worst bomb that you've ever felt like you've had?
No, oh no.
Let's talk about the worst.
So this all has a point. I started at Dublin in Duluth.
Okay.
I'm from Duluth.
Yep.
So that's where I started doing comedy. And within 3 months, I was hosting the mic. And the mic at Dublin in Duluth, they'll seat 80 to 90 people for the mic.
Wow.
In a room that seats 100.
Now, they do that on Fridays typically, don't they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And they pack it, and these people are ready for comedy, and they're ready to roll. And I was hosting it 2.5, 3 months into to me doing comedy. So you do like 10 up front. You don't even necessarily have to run it because somebody else, it's a small scene, so they just kind of run it themselves, really. The show doesn't need to be ran or whatever, So there's not really much to do. And so it was the first time I feel like I invited my friends and family out to see the show.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And at the time, my whole entire routine was I'm fat. That was the whole thing. And I bombed. I bombed very, very bad. And I was new enough where after I bombed, I brought up the next comic. He did fine, and then I went on stage and decided I was going to try to unbomb.
Oh, no.
Which made me, not only did I bomb harder, I looked like a douchebag, right?
Yep.
You were like, oh, God.
Yep.
And then, and that was bad. And so, like, these people, because I was recording my set, so I'd play it for my mom, I'd play it for my brother, and they were like, oh, wow, you seem to be doing okay. And then they're like, you're not good at this at all. I'm like, yeah, I know, I guess not. And to be, the big kicker was that weekend, or the next week I came down and I did a mic somewhere. I don't recall where that mic was. And I did very well at a mic. I'm like, what on earth, why?
Yeah.
Can't just balance out.
That really, you never know what's going to happen with comedy. Like one night you can be doing fine and the next you're not. It's very humbling.
Right.
And which is quite the experience. But like with that, I guess I haven't been there, so I know of the place because they do comedy there quite a bit. And there's, do a lot of the people that show up, are they there for the open mic?
Yeah, they come for the open mic, and they promote the open mic, comedy Friday and Saturday. Friday night, open mic, and Saturday night, they call it the Pro Comedy Tour, it's just a one-nighter booked by Yoder.
Yeah.
Not just, that's
well,
fine.
Yeah, but I know what it is. Yeah,
right. And so it's, but yeah, they're there to watch comedy, and there's servers in the room, and, it gets probably a little rowdier than a paid show because there's not as much control over it. But even then, you can go to the door guy and say, hey, there's a guy in the mic and he's messing things up. And they'll pull him out. So, there is some structure to it.
Yeah. Because Duluth isn't that big, right? Like, not
90,000.
Well, I guess that's a lot bigger than I thought it was.
Yeah. It's smaller than Rochester, but bigger than St. Cloud.
Okay. All right. So it is. I could see, I guess, then they would have a little bit of a scene.
Yeah.
Never mind that. I was going to say, like, couldn't imagine they'd have a big scene, but that's pretty decent amount
When
of people,
I started,
so
it was 6 comics, and the same 6 comics have been doing the same 10 minutes for years. Like, they didn't really change up jokes. And I guess I don't know. The whole scene is pretty much turned over since I've been up there. Mm-hmm. But for a while, you could just do your same bit over and over again and be fine. And people didn't get tired of that because there was no, like, you come into Minneapolis or a scene where people are really going for something. They, they push you. They push you to be better at every show. You're like, I better watch out. That guy's going to be featuring in no time, or that guy's going to pass me up in no time, or you know what I mean? And it's a good thing, too, because...
Well, it's definitely, you definitely get better when you're around better people.
No doubt.
That's,
that
is a definite thing.
But when there's nobody, they wait for jokes to come to them. They don't go looking for jokes. And it may have changed now. At the time, there was 1 mic. Now I think there's 3 up there.
Oh, really?
In like a showcase. So that they've grown that a little bit more. But the level of humor isn't probably on the same level as Minneapolis. It's a little bit more immature. It's a little bit
well, it's probably
sack and farty, really.
Which I think some of your smaller scenes are like that because they're not, they don't necessarily know what comedy is because they're not like trying that hard. To them, it's something to do on a Friday. They're not actually trying to be a stand-up comic.
Right.
And, they're not trying to pursue it as a career.
Right.
To them, it's like, this is a fun thing to do on a Friday night.
Well, and even the ones that are, they just don't know how to make that step. They're like, I'd love to do comedy full-time, but how do I do that in Duluth? And it's like, you really don't. Maria Bamford's from Duluth, but she didn't. She had to move to Minneapolis and then move to LA and move along. Like in Minneapolis, you can grow and be a full-time comic out of Minneapolis and never go to LA or New York, but not Duluth.
Yeah. Actually, you can be a comic anywhere,
right?
But you have to do the moves first. That's one of the once you get established, if you get to where you're, working road comic or whatever, you can live wherever then. But to get to that point, you have to move around a little bit, because you're right. You got to go to different scenes and kind of grow and get to that point.
Yeah.
So then
no different bookers.
Then you can live wherever.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I've always liked about comedy is that you can do it, pretty much from wherever. It helps to be in a bigger area.
Oh, no doubt.
For me, I'm glad that I'm in a bigger area now because I'm closer to an airport.
Right.
That's reasonably priced. Where I was before, I didn't have that.
Right. You probably had to go through this airport anyways. Now you're
a lot of times I did because it was cheaper. We had an airport, but it was always expensive.
Right.
So.
But even flying out of Sioux Falls for the most part, you were flying into Minneapolis to fly somewhere else. Anyways.
Yeah. Connecting flight. Yeah. It was you'd either fly to Minneapolis or fly to Denver, depending on where you're going. Depending on where you're going, but yeah. Yeah, pretty much had to come through here as a connecting flight.
No, definitely a benefit is the airport, and then also the fact, like, Duluth, either at the deck, which is the big like arena up there with an auditorium, they'll get big names, Seinfeld, Gaffigan's been there, whatever, and then Dublin gets a national headliner every Saturday night.
Yeah,
but other than that, there's not a lot of exposure. Whereas, I mean, I remember a weekend less than a year ago. No, I take that back. It was longer than that because the Joke Joint was still open. But there was killer headliners at Joke Joint, HOC, Royal in Hopkins. Like all 5 rooms in Minneapolis had killer headliners.
Yeah.
And you just had your choice. Which one do you want to go see tonight? You know?
It's almost overwhelming.
It is. There's absolutely times where it's like, oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. Excuse me. Yeah, that's one thing too that I did miss about, because I used to live in San Diego and they had quite a few clubs, and because they were so close to LA, they would get some really good headliners at the clubs and stuff. But now I don't go to the clubs as much on the weekends just because I'm working.
Right. Yeah. No kidding. Yeah. No,
I'm on the road myself, so I don't get to enjoy it as much as I'd like to.
Right. No doubt.
But which that's what you want if you're trying to be a working comic, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like even as a part-time comic, I looked and I have something every weekend in February. I have something, not both nights, but every weekend.
Yep.
I have something the weekends that I want them in March because I'm going to Florida, and then I also have something else going on. But the weekends that I want to work, I have something, and April's looking the same way, and May, is looking the same way. So part of me is like, oh, we can't do that. I have a show, and there's a little bit of like, ugh, but then this is what I want. This is good. This is a blast. Yep. And I never regret taking a show when I'm on stage. Well, for the most part.
Unless you bomb, right?
Unless you bomb.
And then we're all like, what am I thinking? Why am I doing this?
Monopoly.
Yeah, it could be
in-laws.
All kinds of productive stuff that's not here.
Right.
Yeah, that's about right. The bumming of bombing, how long does that dreadful feeling last for you, typically?
The bumming of bombing, it's good for the remainder of the night, for sure. But sometimes, if it's a show that I've been really looking forward to, I take it very personal when I invite people to shows.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily like a Facebook invite, but like if I call my cousin and say, hey, I'm going to be in your area, you should really come to the show. And they take off work and get a date and a sitter, and they come to a little bar or wherever and to watch the show, and I don't do well. That's days.
Yeah.
That eats me up that I didn't do well. So it can go on for a while. And it's funny because the bum of bombing, I'm still bummed about that Dublin show when I was 3 months in. I'm like, oh God.
Still haunts you? Yeah, I know. I've got some shows that are still lingering.
Right.
They pop up in my brain once in a while. I'm like, oh man, why am I doing this? That's crazy.
Right. But I mean, as far as like, people go to mics and bomb, that's why mics are there in a way. Like,
that's how I look at it. Like, I don't even really consider what I do at a mic bombing. I mean, I'll say I bombed, but in my mind, I know it's an open mic. I'm supposed to. I'm trying to work out.
Right.
Either I'm trying to work out new material, or I'm trying something different with my material, whether it might be a different order, or I rewrote the wording or something. I'm trying something. So I have an objective that I'm trying to accomplish.
Right.
And if it doesn't work, whatever.
Exactly.
That's what it's for.
Yeah. I'm very thankful, and I don't know how to say this without sounding conceited, because I'm not trying to sound conceited.
You're going to sound conceited.
I'm going to sound very conceited. But I'm very thankful that I tend to have pretty good comedic aptitude, if you will. There's not many times where I think of a premise, and if I work it out and just sneak it into the middle of a feature set or something, where it totally bombs. It's okay if it does. I'll come back. I'll get it back, and I'll usually do it pretty quickly. But you see a lot of comics some that are way better than me. Most of them are way better than me, but they go up on stage and they're like, wow, I really thought that was going to work. And it just dies a dog's death.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very thankful I don't experience that a lot. I don't.
It's coming.
Probably.
Knock on wood.
But I mean, there are times where I know if I said it differently or I said it wrong. But if I have an idea and I think it's funny, and yeah, absolutely, knock on wood, right? If I think it's funny, if I work on it and say it right and present it right, it usually works. Maybe doesn't knock them on their asses laughing.
Yeah.
But okay, we know we're onto something here. Let me tag it up. Let me work it out a little bit. Let's see what we're at. I don't have a lot of dumb premises that I don't realize are dumb until I set up on stage.
Well, no, that's kind of how I do it. I have to say it on stage to really see how it's gonna work or not work.
Right. Yeah. And I find that
what's your writing process then? Do you write physically or do you just kind of think of a premise and say it on stage?
I like to write physically just because for me to go do a mic, I don't do them very often. I have a wife at home. I love being at home at night. And so the worst thing for me, like the bum of bombing, the only thing bigger than that in comedy is the bum of wasting a mic. If I go and I spend 2.5 hours to do 5 minutes at a mic, which is the process, that's great. And then I go up and I don't really know what I'm saying and I just kind of say this bit and throw this out there. And when I'm done, I'm like, I don't know what the hell I did. That's pointless to me. Mm-hmm. I'm not at that point where I just have to get on. Everybody should get on stage as much as they can. But I'm not at that point where I just have to be on stage to be on stage. It needs to be productive. So I don't like to just go, well, let me just say it out. What I like to do is I have a topic in mind. Right now I'm working on a joke about my dad. Mm-hmm. But I'm treading very lightly because I don't ever want it to be that we're making fun of my dad. I want it to be that my dad is laughing along with us. And I think it's possible, but I'm just having to be very careful. My dad, as you know from what struggles from alcoholism, suffered a stroke due to alcoholism. And now his whole life has changed. He has vision loss and he's retired and whatever. And he's my biggest fan, always has been. And I want to write a joke in a way to honor him. And also there is humor in this. So I'm trying to find it. I have like 3 things, and the next time I go to a mic, I'll probably throw them out there.
Yeah.
Okay, that went well, and then I'll build from there. And I like to get to 10 laughs. That's my thing in a bit. If I can get to, ha 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 ha, big, ha ha ha, like that's the rhythm I go for. Mm-hmm. And then we'll build it from there. And there's other jokes I can sort of, for now, I can take these 3 or 4 little lines about my dad, and I can throw them in there kind of as a tag until it's its own thing, and then I can do a bit on my dad. So that's where I'm at right now. As they come to me, I write them down, and when I feel like I have enough to justify bringing it up, then I'll throw it out.
Then you throw it out?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what are some things you try to do to get better as a comic then?
I'm the one thing that I'm doing is I'm trying to find my voice. I'm a guy who, I'm a big guy. People say fat jokes, whatever. That's part of who I am. Is my size. I have a different perspective on things than other people maybe in my situation. So I'm trying to bring that out. But that's my biggest thing right now to be a better comic is find my voice and stick with that consistently throughout my writing. Mm-hmm. I try to watch comedy very open-mindedly, but not too open-mindedly because my brain likes to steal premises. I don't like that it does, but my brain, I've caught them all, thank God, but there's been times, that is so funny. Where did you come up with that? You were watching someone else. Don't do that. So I have to be very careful on that.
I've had that where like I'll think of something and I'm like, man, this is funny, and then I'll go and Google the joke and see if it if something similar comes up to it. Like if it's something that's really like I feel like I've heard before, I'm like, why does this sound like there's no way I wrote this. And I'm like, I gotta double check this shit.
Yeah.
And I'll go look and see if somebody else has a joke similar.
I had a line in a joke.
Thinking is very, very real.
Very possible. I had a line in a joke, and I thought it was funny. It came to me as I was writing. I used to write very differently, and I used to say it. I had this joke about if I die, I want it to at least be a good viral video. Like I want to be speared by a buffalo in South Dakota or something. I don't even remember it. But the end was, hopefully I'll die the same way I lived, as a constant reminder for people to take better care of themselves. And it worked and whatever. But then, and I stopped doing it. I just outgrew it. Whatever. It was stupid. I was watching a video of another comic from Minneapolis who I'm so embarrassed that I can't even say their name because they're wonderful and way funnier than I'll ever be. And that was in his. And I'm like,
which the whole joke? Or?
No, just that line.
Which
Hopefully, his bit was, he had some type of disease, and he says people often ask if sex could kill me, and that is anyone's guess. Insinuating he was a virgin. Then he says, but hopefully I'll die the same way I lived.
Okay.
Which is a
So
constant
the bit was
reminder.
different, but there
the
was
bit was different.
But there was
that,
one exact line.
and I was like, oh my God. And I would. The only time I've ever done anything like that is I got in a crowd work situation and I used a line that I had heard a magician friend of mine using. You're from where? I'm sorry? No, I said I'm sorry. Just trying to shut this guy up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was on a show with somebody who had a little bit of power in the scene. And they're like, dude, that's an old line, dude. And I'm like, what? You know that line? I thought the magician had written it.
Oh, yeah, but that's the thing.
And they held it against me. Like, I think to this day, I still think there's bookings that I don't get because of that.
There's a lot of stock lines that people do in heckling crowd work situations. You know, like, I know comics that have stock stuff ready to go, and a lot of them are kind of similar. So I don't know. It's a different animal with that. But, yeah, it's funny, though, how comics do that, think that way.
Oh, yeah.
'Cause you're talking about your bit about, you hope when you die, the bits, when you die, you hope it's a viral video. I have a joke similar where not about my death being viral, but I want my death to be celebrated only if I die in an epic way. If I get killed by a bear, celebrate that. If I have a heart attack in the toilet, somebody's going to need to wrap my body in a sheet and dump it in the ditch.
Yeah, right.
I want this to be a whodunit.
Yeah.
Like trying
trying
to make my death.
And that was kind of mine was like, I hope I just die cool. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Oh, he
and
was practicing the ancient art of hibachi and like slice his head off. Like, I want to die cool.
Yeah.
That was
I want an epic death. I don't want the death that I know is my reality, where I'm taking a poop and have a heart attack.
And I just found that bit in a notebook, and in like, I was like, oh, I remember that bit. I'm gonna try it tonight. And I was featuring somewhere, and like I get like 2 lines in. I'm like, oh, hate dying. Anybody had anybody die lately? And they're like, oh, and I'm like, oh, and then I'm like, what are you doing? And I just dropped it. And so
that's funny.
2 people came up and they're like, why did you just start talking about dying randomly? And I'm like, I didn't know.
It wasn't exactly random, but that's actually a funny subject. Not funny and hilarious, but a funny approach, because I've noticed that when I talk about that, even that particular joke, that when I try to do it, I'm trying to figure out a way to get into it to make it fun and it's not that bad. But death is such a dark topic, and I have a joke that I don't do very often, but I have a joke about my mom dying. Or being dead, and even sometimes sometimes it gets a really good response, or sometimes it gets the exact opposite. And there's usually no in between. It's either hits really hard or needles dropping, crickets in the back.
You're like, okay, well.
But it's funny because
it's a dice roller.
Something about death, people just don't find it as humorous, I guess, if you will.
Yeah, it's really interesting. You can come at it as carefully and as. It's funny to say come at it thoughtfully, because anytime you talk about death, it seems kind of thoughtless, doesn't it?
Right? Yeah.
But
I thoughtfully talked about death. Well, that just sounds like you're planning suicide.
How thoughtfully. Do you need?
Whoa,
need to
do I need
talk?
to call
Everything
somebody?
Okay at home? Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, which is kind of a sad thing. But yeah, it is, because you really do have to be. There's not a lot of subjects that are like that. But I mean, death is a downer. I mean, that's everybody dies. Everybody's had somebody.
Oh, no doubt. And will again. I mean, it's absolutely inevitable.
Yeah.
But you know what? I did. Do you know John DeBoer?
Yeah.
I opened for John DeBoer, and I was watching his set, and I love watching him because he goes so easily between corporate comic to like back room of the bar comic. So easy. And I mean, overnight he'll do it. And he talks about his dad, and his dad's getting older, and his dad is his best friend. And he says, he goes, I make jokes about it because when you make something funny, you take away its power to hurt you. And that line, that is what resonated with me enough to finally write about my dad. Now, that was September, and I still haven't said the bit to Mike because I'm dancing around it. Because, again, I never want it to be that we're making fun of my dad. But it is. There's so much truth to that. You can say things in a bit, and maybe it's the constant reflection, because as you're saying it in a bit, you have to be in it for it to sell.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for me, I don't know. Maybe I haven't did the bit. I've only did it really like at open mics, so I'm still trying to work it out here and there. Yeah. But for me, I don't know, because it's like I come at it from a perspective as like I've already accepted that I'm going to die.
Right.
Because I'm also, as a person, I'm very logical, and very reasonable about things. Like I understand the way things are, and I've just accepted that. That's just who I am, and that's in my personality. But a lot of other people, even though it is their reality, they don't accept it. And so when you start trying to talk about it, they're like, "Ooh, I don't know if we should talk about this." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm gonna die."
Well, you can't avoid it. It's just how long.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I don't know. It's like I'm like 40. I'm 41, and I think about this too, because I'm like, well, people say you're gonna have a midlife crisis. I'm like, how do you know? I might not live that long. Like I'm
right.
And I've had to cool it back though, off the mic, because I make jokes about dying probably way more than my fiance would appreciate. She gets mad at me all the time because I'm always making some stupid. I'm like, oh, I'm going to have a heart attack because I ate this or drank that.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny when things happen to people, how like those lines, you don't realize you say them. Mm-hmm. Like I find them funny, but like my dad had a stroke. It almost ended his life a year and a half ago. You don't realize how often in society we say, God, you almost gave me a stroke. I'm going to have a stroke here. Like, people say that stuff all the time. And I'm actually, like, don't say that. Now I'm concerned.
That's funny. On stage, I say that. Sometimes I'll, like, slip up words. I'm like, oh, my God, am I having a stroke? I've said that on more than one occasion.
Well, and it's always for, like, things that aren't really that serious. Like a stroke is very serious.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Right. Just because you didn't get the answers of Fast Money right on Family Feud, you're not having a stroke. You're just probably potassium deficiency or something.
That's what they call brain freeze, my friend.
Right,
brain freeze. You just
relax.
Your brain's just not working the way it should.
Right.
What's something, either, and this can be personally or comedy or career or whatever, doesn't matter, but I like to try to end on a positive note. Yeah. What's something up in your life that you've done that you're really proud of? Something so far.
Honestly, right now, my biggest accomplishment is probably my marriage. I'm really proud of that. We got married in September.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. The relationship that I have with her, finding balance with marriage and comedy. It's funny how you're probably doing things right. It used to be when I was sitting at home with her on the couch, I wanted to be out doing a mic. And now it's when I'm out doing a mic, I really wish I was sitting at home with her on the couch. You know what I mean?
I'm the same way.
Yeah, like... These kids who are like, oh, dude, are you going to go to this 11 o'clock mic at this taco stand in Minneapolis? Absolutely not. No, thank you.
I'm hoping to be at home on my couch with my lady and my dogs.
Absolutely. And then
I've been finding it harder and harder to go out.
Yeah,
actually.
No doubt.
I'm in a constant battle all the time. And I'm like, I know I need to go out and work on some new material, but I'm also, but this is so nice.
Right. Well, when you do longer sets, the pressure to like. I just listened to an episode today in preparation for coming on. I listened to Ali's episode.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and Ali was like, go out, get up. And Ali's doing way more than I'll probably ever do in comedy, so I'm not knocking him. But I just had this conversation with another comic, Todd Skoda, who you probably know, and he's like, "You got to get out. You got to grind. You got to get on stage." I'm like, "Yeah, but are you working on anything new?" Well, no.
Oh yeah, that's
what
a
are you
good
doing
point.
then?
It's like if you're not working on anything new, you don't need to be getting
And
up.
sometimes, listen, you can write all you want. Sometimes there's just nothing that's at that point that needs to be mic'd at that time, as I like to call it. And that's okay, but sometimes there's this pressure to mic, to go to mics, just to get on stage, just to mic. If you don't have new stuff...
I feel that way, though, sometimes, because for me, anyway, if I don't get up for, 2 or 3 weeks at a time, I start losing my, edge on stage.
Yep.
Not necessarily forget my material or my jokes. No, I just lose that edge or my presence, I guess.
Yeah. Your comfort,
and
probably.
My comfort, probably kind of a mixture of things. So for me, if I'm not doing anything for a couple of weeks, I gotta get out at least once or twice,
no doubt,
just to maintain the edge, even if I'm not working on anything new. Because, like I said, if I don't, I just feel like, and then when I do get on stage, I'm so rusty, and I'm like, I try to prevent that.
Right. No, I feel that. I'm at a point now, even just at, I've featured featured or emceed. I've been on a real show, if you will, for the past 5 or 6 weeks, at least once a week. And I feel, when I get on stage, I just feel comfortable right now.
Yep.
If I need to switch up my set on stage, if I want to play with old bits a little bit, I feel comfortable enough to do that and have the confidence to bring them home. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
You lose that if you're not on stage.
No, absolutely. And that's one thing that's nice about being able to do longer sets too, where you have the time to relax and take your time and work out, really work out a bit and really sell it, Oh, yeah. It's not always about the laugh. It's about the silence and taking it all in. So
and if you set up, sometimes I will sacrifice, like I said, and not all my bits are like this, but I like to get to 10. I like to tell a story, and in that story there's 10 laughs. Naturally, the biggest laugh should be at the end. I'm willing to sacrifice 1 or even 2 of those smaller laughs if I think it's going to make a bigger laugh at the end. And not everybody, will do that, but if I can set something up, and maybe not, the ultimate goal would be to set it up really nice with punches, but maybe those punches aren't quite there yet, but I know it's just going to make it so much better at the end. Absolutely. And you have time to do that as a feature. I emceed last weekend, and it was like, well, I have a lot to get to. Here are the rules. Blah, blah, blah.
How much time are you doing as the MC?
I was doing 15.
Yeah. But when you have to do the rule, I mean, that eats up a lot of time, too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably losing 2 to 3 minutes.
And honestly, I never forget to do it. I always forget to account for that when I'm on stage. In my mind, that's 10 seconds, but it's not. It takes some time.
It takes a little bit.
Bathrooms are over here. Hey, by round of applause. Who's been here before? Who's the first time? Round of applause to yourselves for being whatever, all that stuff. So, yeah, that's... I did 15, and actually I ended up doing 17, which I felt terrible about because I looked at my phone. I didn't have a timer going or anything, just the clock on my phone. I'm like, I'm good. And then I'm almost done with my closer. I'm like, I'm over. And the feature, the headliner, and the booker were all like, no big deal. But I felt like ultimate trash. I'm like, I am not worthy.
It's like the worst thing to do is run the light.
Oh my God.
Run overtime.
Yeah, and it was like, and especially as an MC, it's such a conceited, arrogant thing to do. And I'll swear it on my mother and my wife, it was an absolute honest mistake. And they were cool with it,
happens.
Whatever. And
I seen we were at a show, and the way they had the light positioned, nobody saw it. Everybody ran the light. The host ran the light. I ended up running the light. Even the headliner ran the light.
I ran the light my first time at Sisyphus, and my only time at the Sisyphus, Mike. Corey said there would be a red light that would come on with 30 seconds left or whatever, and the red light was on the whole time. So, and I was only in a comedy less than 2 months, and I didn't realize that like now I'm more adapted to like stage lights and whatever. I'd probably recognize that there's a red light over here, but it was just bright and there was a bunch of lights on me. And then with like 10 seconds left, he started flashing it. And I was like, I don't know. Is that the 30 seconds? That's what I thought it was. Mm-hmm. He flashed it. And I was like, okay, I got 30 seconds. And I ended up going over 15 seconds. And he was very upset about that. Very, very upset, which I get. I was an open micer. Yeah. I was new. And again, not intentional.
Yeah. I got to teach you, though. Got to make sure you learn the lesson.
Yeah, and I did. I don't go to Sisyphus anymore. That's the lesson I learned.
Oh man, I don't think that was the lesson, but all right, to each their own. It's all in how you perceive it, I guess. Final thing, where can people find you? I mean, don't promote shows. Heads up, because I don't know when this will release. So
no. But I mean,
how can they find shows that you'll be on?
Comedian Dan Hinnenkamp on Facebook. Okay. DH Hinnenkamp, or no, dhcomedy.com. I think my domain's up, so I have to renew that because I was going to switch, and now I didn't. But anyways, that's it. But yeah, Comedian Dan Hinnenkamp, and then just on my personal page on Facebook, I'm always pushing things.
All right.
I have a couple exciting things coming up in the next couple months, so I'm looking forward to those. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for joining me.
Hey, thanks for having me, man. This was fun.
The Art of Bombing is a Blitz Entertainment production. Hosted and produced by Dan Bublitz Jr., The Art of Bombing intro music was written and performed by John Holt. All other music used in this podcast was under the Creative Commons license. If you would like to help The Art of Bombing, you can do so by subscribing, rating, and reviewing our show on whatever podcast application you use to listen to The Art of Bombing. For previous episodes, blogs, and more, visit artofbombingpod.com. Have a great week, and remember, stay safe so you can live to love.